So how is President Obama's groundbreaking video message to Tehran being received by Iranians themselves? That's a question I put earlier to Trita Parsi. He's the president and founder of the National Iranian-American Council. Trita, give me some sense of whether this message, this 4-minute message from President Barack Obama, marks a real sea change in U.S.-Iranian relations.
It certainly does. There's several aspects, components of this message that is, in and of themselves, sea changes. First, you have the president addressing the Iranian people and the Iranian government, referring to them as leaders of Iran, even mentioning the Islamic Republic by name, indicating that the times of overt U.S.-sponsored regime change as a policy seems to be over, which does not mean that democratization is over, but U.S.-sponsored regime change is
over. And how many times do you reckon this message will have been downloaded and watched in Iran itself?
Oh, it's going to be amazing. I can tell you I've received Nowruz messages, New Year's greetings, all day from people all over the world. And it's fascinating to see how many of them at the bottom say, check out this link. And it's the link to the website of the White House with the president giving this historic message.
So Iranians are excited about this?
Certainly.
And
this is the topic of conversation at every Nowruz gathering in Iran and outside of Iran.
What about the hardliners in Iran? Are they going to be excited about this message? Because it seems to me this is pretty shrewd politics on the part of this administration here in Washington. That you play the nice guy and you're kind of backing the hardliners in Iran into a corner, aren't you?
In some way, yes, but at the same time, there's a lot of other things in this speech that is quite unprecedented. You have the president declare a strategic intent of finding a constructive relationship with Iran and ending 30 years of enmity. We have not seen that type of a language, such a clarity from the United States for quite some time. Also, declaring that the United States recognizes that Iran has a rightful role amongst the nations of the world, recognizing that Iran has legitimate interest in the region. These are things that previous administrations did not recognize in this fashion, which are key objectives of the Iranians. So in that sense, I think there's a lot of things in there that even made the hardliners in Iran think twice and perhaps be a little bit surprised.
And the fact that this is a message without deadlines, without preconditions, there's no red tape here in this message.
Well, there's no significant substance on the specific issues per se. Rather, what the president is doing is that he is injecting much needed trust and confidence in a process of diplomacy that is unfortunately taking place in an atmosphere that is almost completely void of trust. So this is the first necessary step. He's not going into the specifics of the substance. Instead, he's talking about his larger intent.
Trita Parsi, I've heard it described as a Nixon goes to China moment. Sounds like you pretty much agree with that.
I would say that it's in the same category, yes.
Thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Back in Washington, President Obama was talking budgets, his own, and since savings begin at home, he announced that expensive plans to revamp the White House plumbing system have been cancelled. Okay, so that's pretty small change compared to his $787 billion stimulus package. But perhaps he was hoping that visiting politicians, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Republican governor of California, and Michael Bloomberg, Republican mayor of New York, would be equally thrifty when they got back home. Just before he made the trip to Washington, Mayor Bloomberg spoke exclusively to the BBC's Philippa Thomas at New York City Hall.
Mayor Bloomberg, welcome to BBC World News.
Thank you for having me.
I want to begin with the economy. And given what's hitting Wall Street and other financial centres, do you think it's a matter of riding out the storm or somehow reinventing the system?
Well, I think we always think that it's the end of the world, and if you go back and look, they tend to be severe corrections where some people really do have pain, but overall the economy continues to grow. At least in the case of New York, which is the one thing I know about, I'm reasonably optimistic. I think a year from now we'll look back and say the worst was over.
What do you say to those who believe we should reimagine the way the system works? Perhaps think about a greater government stake in the financial sector?
Well, fundamentally, I guess I'm a capitalist. The last time somebody tried to manage the economy, it was done in the USSR, and that didn't work out very well. There is an awful lot to be said for letting the marketplace make decisions. If you want to have true freedom, you have to be in control of your own destiny, and that includes where you work and what you get paid and what you buy and what you're willing to spend for it. And this cry for total regulation or destroying everything that's been built up because there were 10 years or 7 years of excesses, to me seems misguided.
One of the things we're focusing on now is AIG and the issue of whether the executives should be keeping their bonuses. And what's your take on that?
Well, I'll leave that to the federal government. My concern is the 6,500 people who work for AIG in New York City.
Isn't there a moral lead to be taken here, though, from the top rank of a company like this that's taking taxpayers' money?
Well, I think you have to understand that if you take taxpayers' money, there is a different set of standards that apply. Now, employees might say, well, I didn't ask for the company to take taxpayers' money. The same thing, they didn't ask for the company to get into financial trouble. But those companies that want help from the federal government, both they and their employers have to understand the public, in this case, is outraged.
You're in a good position to offer advice to President Obama about the economy and his handling of it. Is there anything more you think he could or should be doing?
Well, number one, he's been in office for 2 months, so it's...
But the country needs him to have an impact.
There's no argument about that, but he's trying to take on... He's doing some things that I've recommended for a long time. He is building a team. That's his first job, and because no matter how many crises you have today, he's been elected for 4 years and might get reelected for another 4 based on how well he does in the first 4. So he's got to have a team for that long period of time, and there's always going to be crises, and you just can't let your whole focus be on the immediate, no matter how serious those are.
You talked about team building being critical at the first priority. Are you confident then that Timothy Geithner, a man you know very well, is the right man at the right time in the Treasury?
Absolutely. I think that you couldn't do any better. Geithner has enormous experience. He is very smart. He is as hardworking and dedicated as anybody I've ever met. There's no easy solutions here. Tim has come in with challenges that perhaps no Secretary of the Treasury since Alexander Hamilton has had to face day one.
You famously said that there were 4 jobs worth having, and you're doing one of them already.
I can tell you exactly what they were. President of the United States is clearly a great job. Secretary General of the United Nations is a great job. Head of the World Bank is a great job. IMF I hadn't listed before, but that's another great job. And being the mayor of New York City, because it is so big and what we do is so visible that you really can change the world. That's why I want another term. We'll see whether the voters want me.
Mayor Bloomberg, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Philippa Thomas there speaking to New York's Mayor Michael Bloomberg, who wasn't giving very much away about his future. Still to come here on BBC World News America, a very angry volcano in the South Pacific. For 5 days, it's been shooting clouds of steam and ash miles into the air. Scientists say there is more to come.
Welcome back to the special edition of BBC World News America, coming to you live from Shibuya in the commercial heart of Tokyo. Still coming up on tonight's program, the spectacular erupting volcano. With all the fury of an AIG bashing congressman, this underwater volcano in the South Pacific just can't refrain from spewing out lava. We'll bring you the latest incredible pictures. And it's hard to imagine these people ever erupting. We take you on board the Japanese bullet train. It's quiet, it's calm, it's elegant. Where else in the world could commuting be so classy? Now then, for 5 days, an underwater volcano has been erupting spectacularly in the Pacific Ocean south of Japan. It has been spewing steam and ash 13 miles into the air. And scientists say it's not over yet. An earthquake has shaken the underwater volcano. More lava and ash are on their way. Here's our correspondent David Shookman.
It's one of the most spectacular and powerful forces in nature. Great jets of rock and steam. And the tourists filming these pictures are uncomfortably close.
Are you ready to what? Run away?
Run away. The smoke and the ash are getting closer. The eruption keeps growing.
Turn us around! Turn us around!
But the sight is mesmerizing.
There, look at this! Next one!
Another jet of lava from the ocean floor. This could happen anywhere here. The volcanoes of Tonga are a tourist attraction, but witnessing this process has its dangers. It's no surprise this is happening in the Pacific in what's called the Ring of Fire, where volcanoes and earthquakes are frequent. In fact, today, the islands of Tonga suffered a quake while the undersea volcano was erupting. Now, the lava's been breaking through the seabed, sending rock and ash up to the surface, and it's accumulating so rapidly that in a couple of days, this underwater mountain is tall enough to form a new island. But it might not last.
Typically what happens is this eruption activity might go on for a number of days or weeks, then it will cease, and then over a period of maybe weeks or months, the island will be washed away by the next storm.
But some undersea volcanoes do leave a legacy. It's how many islands are formed.
Great pictures there of nature baring its teeth. I'll be back later in the program with a ride on the famous Japanese bullet train, and I'll explain to you why this is a model that America may want to follow.